you should walk away.
If I do, will you survive?
A black single mom never expected her life to collide with the Seoul underworld. Lena Carter, a struggling black American woman trying to survive in a foreign city, was just another invisible face in the rain, until a wounded Korean Mafia boss collapsed in front of her. The night it happened, Seoul's rain fell like bullets against the pavement, each drop exploding in tiny bursts of silver under the flickering streetlights. Lena had been walking home from her second job, her body aching, her mind numb with exhaustion. Her daughter Nia was waiting at home with the elderly neighbor who watched her for free because Lena couldn't afford proper childcare. Every step through the rain-soaked streets of Itaewon felt heavier than the last. She didn't belong here. That's what the stairs told her every day. That's what the whispers said when she walked into rooms. A black woman, alone, raising a mixed daughter in a country that didn't know what to do with either of them. She had come to Seoul chasing a promise of work, of a fresh start after Nia's father had disappeared, leaving nothing but debt and broken promises. But fresh starts, she'd learned, were just another kind of lie. In the dark alleys of Seoul's criminal underworld, where dark romance and violence walk hand in hand, she had no idea that the dangerous man bleeding at her feet had been sent to kill her. His name was Kang Min-yi, though she wouldn't learn that until later. What she saw first was blood, so much blood, spreading across the wet concrete like spilled ink. He had stumbled out of the shadows between two buildings, one hand pressed against his side, the other gripping a gun that clattered to the ground as his knees buckled. Their eyes met for exactly 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, Lena should have run. Every instinct screamed at her to turn around, to pretend she'd seen nothing, to let whatever gang violence this was play out without her. She had a daughter to get home to. She had a life to protect, fragile as it was. But she'd also been a nurse once, back in Atlanta, before the world had taken that from her too. And muscle memory was a cruel thing. She knelt beside him. His eyes were dark, almost black in the dim light, and they fixed on her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Even bleeding out, even barely conscious, there was something predatory about him, something that radiated danger like heat from a flame. "Don't," he whispered in Korean, his voice rough. "Don't help me." She didn't speak Korean well, but she understood that. She understood, and she ignored it. This was never supposed to be a love story. It was supposed to be an execution. Min-yi had received the order 3 days ago. His target, Lena Carter, black American female, age 29, residing in Itaewon. The reason, she'd witnessed a transaction she shouldn't have, though she didn't even know it. 2 weeks earlier, while working a late shift at a convenience store, she'd sold cigarettes to 3 men who'd been speaking in low voices near the back. She'd barely glanced at them, hadn't understood their Korean anyway, but one of them had been a prosecutor's informant. The conversation had been recorded. And now, to eliminate any potential witnesses, anyone who might identify faces, the order had come down from the organization's upper echelon. Clean, quick, make it look like a robbery. Min-yi never questioned orders. In the 8 years since he'd risen to become one of the Kang family's most efficient enforcers, he'd executed dozens of commands without hesitation. It was how you survived in this world, how you proved loyalty, how you kept the people you cared about safe from the machinery of the underworld. But now, as this woman's hands pressed against his wound, as her brown eyes filled with concern for a stranger who'd come to end her life, something in his carefully constructed world began to crack. If you love dark romance stories featuring a Korean mafia boss and a black single mom, like this video, comment where you're watching from, and share this story with someone who loves dangerous love stories. The apartment Lena dragged him to was barely larger than a closet. A studio in one of Itaewon's oldest buildings, the kind that smelled of kimchi and mildew, where the walls were so thin you could hear your neighbors breathing. She shouldn't have brought him here. God, she shouldn't have brought him anywhere near her home, near Nia. But the nearest hospital would have asked questions she couldn't answer, and something in his eyes, some desperate, dying plea, had stopped her from calling the police. He'd passed out in the elevator. Lena had somehow managed to drag his considerable weight down the hallway, her shoulders screaming in protest. Mrs. Kim, the neighbor watching Nia, had poked her head out, eyes widening at the scene. "Problem with a friend," Lena had said in broken Korean, forcing a smile. "Too much soju." Mrs. Kim had nodded slowly, unconvinced, but Korean politeness dictated you didn't pry. She'd ushered Nia into Lena's apartment, gathered her things, and left with one long backward glance. Now Minyi lay on Lena's only bed, his blood seeping into sheets she couldn't afford to replace, while Nia slept on the pull-out couch in the main room, oblivious to the danger 10 feet away. Lena worked by the light of her phone, her old nursing training coming back in fragments. The wound was a knife slash, not a gunshot. That was good. Deep, but not fatal if treated properly. She'd raided the first aid kit she kept for Nia's scraped knees and her own kitchen for anything that might help. As she cleaned the wound, Minyi's eyes fluttered open. He grabbed her wrist with surprising strength, making her gasp. His grip was iron, and for the first time, real fear spiked through her chest. "You made a mistake," he said in Korean, then switched to heavily accented English when he saw her confusion. "Helping me, big mistake." "You're welcome," Lena replied, trying to pull her wrist free. His fingers only tightened. "You don't understand." His jaw clenched as she pressed gauze against the wound. "I know who you are, Lena Carter, daughter Nia, age 6. You work at GS25 on weeknights, clean offices on weekends." Ice flooded Lena's veins. "How do you?" "I was sent to kill you." The words hung in the air between them like smoke. Lena's hands stilled. Her heart hammered so hard she could feel it in her throat, behind her eyes, in her fingertips still pressed against this stranger's blood-soaked skin. "What?" Minyi's eyes bore into hers. Even weakened, even bleeding, he radiated a lethal kind of authority. 2 weeks ago, convenience store, 3 men, you saw them." "I don't. I see hundreds of people." "One was an informant, high-profile case. You're a witness, a loose end." His grip on her wrist loosened slightly, but he didn't let go. Orders are orders. Lena's mind raced. The night came back to her in flashes, 3 men in expensive suits, speaking rapidly in Korean near the back of the store. She'd barely looked at them, had been counting her register, worried about getting home to Nia. She couldn't identify them if her life depended on it. Her life, Nia's life. "I didn't see anything," she whispered. "I don't even know what they looked like." "Doesn't matter, can't take chances." "So why?" her voice cracked. "Why am I not dead right now?" That was the question that had been burning through Minyi's consciousness since the moment she'd knelt beside him. He'd been on his way to her apartment when rival gang members had ambushed him in the alley, a territorial dispute that had nothing to do with his current assignment. The knife wound had been meant to slow him down, a warning. But when he'd stumbled out and seen her face, when she'd looked at him with concern instead of fear, when she'd reached for him instead of running, something had short-circuited in his brain. No one had looked at him like that in years, like he was human, like he was worth saving. "I don't know," he admitted, and it was the first honest thing he'd said to anyone in longer than he could remember. Lena pulled her wrist free. She should run. She should grab Nia and disappear into the night. But where would she go? She had 300,001 in her bank account and no family for 7,000 miles. "Are you going to kill me?" She was surprised by how steady her voice sounded. Minyi looked at her for a long moment. At her hands, still stained with his blood. At her eyes, exhausted but defiant. At the small apartment with children's drawings stuck to the refrigerator and second-hand furniture that had been arranged with care despite having nothing. "No," he said, and with that single word, he signed his own death warrant. Because in his world, disobedience meant only one thing. But they'll send someone else. The attack came 3 hours later, just before dawn. Minyi had been drifting in and out of consciousness. His body trying to heal when his phone vibrated against the floor where it had fallen. He'd managed to grab it, squinting at the screen. A message from Yi-sung, his closest friend in the organization. "They know you haven't reported in. Team being dispatched to clean up. Get out." He was on his feet before the pain even registered. stumbling toward the main room where Lena had fallen asleep in a chair, positioned between him and her daughter like a shield. "Wake up," he hissed, shaking her shoulder. "We need to leave, now." Lena's eyes snapped open, instantly alert in the way mothers learn to be. "What?" "They're coming, for both of us now." Understanding dawned in her eyes. By helping him, by him not completing his assignment, she'd become an even bigger liability. And he'd become a traitor. Nia stirred on the couch, her small voice sleepy. "Mommy." The sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway. Heavy, multiple sets. They had maybe 30 seconds. Minyi moved on instinct. He grabbed the knife from Lena's kitchen counter, tested the window lock, rusted shut, useless. The apartment was a trap. 5th floor, one exit, and men with guns approaching from the only way out. "Bathroom," he commanded. "Now." Lena scooped Nia into her arms, the little girl's confusion turning to fear as she picked up on her mother's panic. They crowded into the tiny bathroom, Lena clutching her daughter, Minyi positioning himself in front of them despite the blinding pain in his side. The apartment door exploded inward with a crash. "Kang Minyi," the voice was familiar. Ti-Yong, another enforcer, a man who'd come up through the ranks alongside Minyi. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Come out. We'll make it quick." Minyi said nothing, his mind calculating. 3, maybe 4 men, all armed, all trained, and him with a kitchen knife and a body that could barely stand upright. Nia whimpered against her mother's chest. The sound was soft, but in the silence it carried. Footsteps approached the bathroom. "We know she's here, the woman and the kid. This is your last chance to walk out of this breathing." Lena's eyes met Minyi's in the darkness. She was terrified. He could see it in every line of her body, but there was something else there too. A fierce protectiveness that reminded him why he'd chosen not to kill her in the first place. She wasn't begging for her life. She was calculating, just like him, trying to figure out how to save her daughter. The bathroom door handle turned. Minyi moved. He kicked the door open with enough force to slam it into Ti-Yong's face, heard the satisfying crunch of cartilage breaking. Before the man could recover, Minyi was on him, the kitchen knife finding the soft space between ribs with the precision of someone who'd done this too many times to count. Gunshots erupted. Lena screamed, covering Nia's body with her own. Minyi used Ti-Yong's falling body as a shield, grabbed the man's gun, and fired twice in quick succession. 2 more bodies dropped, but there were more. He could hear them coming up the stairs, reinforcements, because the organization never sent just one team for a traitor. "The window," he gasped, blood from his reopened wound soaking through his shirt. "Fire escape on the building next door, 3-meter jump." "Are you insane?" Lena stared at him. "With Nia. You want to die here instead." Another gunshot splintered the door frame above their heads. That decided it. They ran. Minyi provided cover fire as Lena kicked out the bedroom window, glass raining down onto the alley below. The fire escape of the adjacent building was close, but not close enough. It would require a leap of faith across empty air, 5 stories above concrete. "I'll go first with her," Lena said, already adjusting Nia on her hip. "Then you." "No," Minyi grabbed her arm. "If you fall. If you throw her and miss, she dies. If I jump with her, at least I can try to grab the railing." Lena's voice was iron. "You shoot, I jump. Those are the options." There was no time to argue. Men were at the apartment door. Lena climbed onto the windowsill, her daughter clinging to her like a baby monkey. "Nia, baby, close your eyes and hold on tight to mommy, okay? Don't let go no matter what." "I'm scared," Nia whispered. "I know, baby, me too, but we're going to be okay." She jumped. For a horrible moment, Minyi thought they wouldn't make it. Lena and Nia seemed to hang in the air, suspended between buildings, between life and death. Then Lena's hands caught the fire escape railing, her body slamming against the metal with brutal force. She gasped in pain but didn't let go, didn't drop her daughter. "Go," she screamed at him. Minyi fired his last 3 rounds through the doorway, then turned and leaped. His wounded body didn't have the same strength. His hands caught the railing, but his grip was slippery with blood. He felt himself sliding, falling, and then Lena's hand grabbed his wrist. "I've got you," she grunted, her fingers digging into his skin. "Climb." He didn't know where she found the strength. This woman who'd been half dead with exhaustion a few hours ago now held his entire weight with one hand while keeping her daughter secure with the other. But she did it. She held on until he could get his feet on the fire escape bars, until he could pull himself up. More gunshots from the window they'd just left. Bullets pinged off the metal around them. They descended the fire escape at a run, Nia bouncing on her mother's hip, tears streaming down her face but making no sound. At the bottom, Minyi grabbed them both and pulled them into a side alley just as a black sedan screeched around the corner. They ran through the pre-dawn streets of Seoul, a wounded Korean Mafia boss, a black single mom, and a 6-year-old girl, while behind them, the entire underworld mobilized to hunt them down. This was no longer just an execution order. This was war. If this story has you hooked so far, tap like. Let me know in the comments whose side you're on. And don't forget to subscribe for more AMBW Korean Mafia dark romance stories. The safe house was in Gangnam, ironically one of Seoul's most affluent neighborhoods. A penthouse apartment registered under a shell company, known only to a select few in the organization. Minyi had been keeping it as insurance for years, never imagining he'd need to use it like this. The elevator ride up was silent except for Nia's quiet sniffles. Lena held her daughter close, her eyes hollow with shock, her clothes still stained with Minyi's blood. She hadn't spoken since they'd escaped, had simply followed his directions through back alleys and subway tunnels, her trust in him either absolute or born of having no other choice. The apartment was sleek, modern, and cold. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Seoul skyline, now turning pink with sunrise. Lena set Nia down on the leather couch, and the little girl immediately curled into a ball, exhausted. "She needs rest," Lena said. Her voice was mechanical. "And food, and—" She looked down at her shaking hands. "God, what did I do? What did I do?" The breakdown had been coming. Minyi could see it in the way her shoulders started to shake, how her breathing became ragged. He'd seen this before, the aftermath of violence, when the adrenaline wore off and reality set in. He moved toward her, then stopped. What comfort could he offer? He was the reason her life had imploded. "You saved my life," he said quietly. "That's what you did. I should have left you there to die." But there was no conviction in her words, just desperation. "Oh God, Nia, what's going to happen to Nia?" "I'll protect you both, I promise." Lena laughed, a broken sound. "Protect us? You're the one they sent to kill me. Now we're hiding in some apartment while every gangster in Seoul looks for us." "Yes." The simple honesty of it seemed to shock her more than anything else. She stared at him, this dangerous man who'd upended her entire existence, and he stared back, trying to convey something he didn't have words for. "Why?" she whispered. "Why didn't you just let us die?" Minyi had been asking himself the same question. The rational answer was that he'd made a tactical decision in the moment, that things had spiraled out of control. But that was a lie. The truth was that when he'd looked into her eyes in that rain-soaked alley, he'd seen something he'd forgotten existed. Goodness. Selflessness. A woman with every reason to walk away who'd chosen to help anyway. In his world of betrayal and blood, she'd been pure light, and he'd been unable to extinguish it. "I don't know," he admitted. "But it's done now, we're in this together." "Together?" Lena tested the word. "I don't even know you." "You know I'm dangerous. You know I was sent to kill you. You know I didn't." He took a step closer. "That's all that matters." The next 3 days blurred together. Minyi used his contacts to arrange for supplies, for clean phones, for information on the organization's movements. They were looking everywhere, every safe house, every known associate, every place Minyi had ever been seen. The price on his head was substantial. The price on Lena and Nia was even higher. During the day, Lena tried to maintain some semblance of normalcy for Nia. She created games, told stories, pretended they were on an adventure. But at night, when her daughter finally slept, Lena would stand at those floor-to-ceiling windows and stare out at the city that had become her prison. Minyi found himself watching her, more than he should, more than was appropriate. There was a strength to her that fascinated him. She should have been broken by everything that had happened, but instead she adapted, strategized, survived. She asked smart questions about the organization, about their enemies, about possible escape routes. Her mind was sharp, cutting through his explanations to the core of each problem. And when she looked at him, there was no fear. Wariness, yes, anger certainly, but not fear. "Tell me about them," she said one night, settling onto the couch across from where he was cleaning his gun. "The people hunting us, who are they?" Minyi's hands stilled. No one asked about the organization. It was safer not to know. "The Kang family," he said finally. "One of Seoul's 3 major crime syndicates. Real estate, construction, political influence. Very old money pretending to be legitimate. And you." I was one of their enforcers. The ones who handle problems that can't be solved with money or influence. "How many people have you killed?" The question was blunt, direct. Lena had stopped tiptoeing around the reality of who he was. "Enough that I stopped counting." She absorbed this, her expression unreadable. "Do you feel guilty?" "Would it change anything if I said yes?" "No," she admitted, "but I'd like to know who I'm trusting with my daughter's life." Minyi set the gun down and looked at her directly. "I grew up with nothing, orphaned at 12, on the streets by 13. The organization gave me purpose, structure, family. I was good at what they needed, so I rose. And yes, I've done terrible things I can't take back." He paused. "But I've never killed anyone who didn't know the game they were playing. I've never touched a civilian who didn't have blood on their own hands, until I was ordered to kill you." "What made me different?" "You're innocent. Your daughter is innocent. And I've become a lot of things, but I'm not that yet." The air between them felt charged, heavy with unspoken things. Lena's gaze held his, searching for something, truth, maybe, or reassurance that she hadn't made a catastrophic mistake in trusting him. "My ex-husband used to say I had a savior complex," she said softly. "That I was always trying to fix broken things, broken people." A sad smile. "I guess he was right." "I'm not asking you to fix me." "No, you're asking me to survive with you. That might be worse." As the days passed, the forced proximity began to create its own kind of tension. The apartment wasn't large, and there was nowhere to hide from each other. Minyi became intimately familiar with Lena's routines, how she hummed while making breakfast, how she braided Nia's hair with patient fingers, how she chewed her bottom lip when she was worried. And Lena noticed things about him too. The way he always positioned himself between her and the door. How he barely slept, keeping watch even when exhaustion made his eyes red. The gentleness in his voice when he spoke to Nia, so at odds with the violence he was capable of. One night, Nia had a nightmare. She woke screaming, crying for her grandmother, for her old apartment, for everything she'd lost. Lena held her, rocking her, but nothing helped. The little girl was inconsolable. Then Minyi knelt beside them and started speaking in Korean. A story, Lena realized. Some kind of fairy tale about a brave princess and a dragon who protected her. His voice was soft, melodic, and even though Nia didn't understand the words, the tone soothed her. Within minutes, she was calm, her eyes drooping. "Where did you learn that?" Lena asked after Nia had fallen back asleep. "My mother used to tell it to me, before she died." It was the first personal thing he'd shared that wasn't about violence or survival. Lena found herself wanting to know more, to understand the man behind the killer. It was dangerous, she knew. Dangerous to humanize him, to let him become anything more than a temporary alliance. But late at night, when she couldn't sleep, she would watch him standing at the window, his profile sharp against the city lights, and feel something shift in her chest. Something that had no place in their situation. Something that felt dangerously like desire. The danger drew her. The darkness that radiated from him called to something she'd tried to bury, a part of herself that was tired of being good, of being proper, of following rules that had never protected her. Minyi felt it too, the pull, the obsession that was growing beyond his control. He wanted her, not just physically, though God knew he thought about that more than he should, about how her skin would feel under his hands, how she would taste, how she would sound saying his name. But it was more than that. He wanted her trust, her smiles, the right to stand beside her not as a bodyguard, but as something more. It was insane. They were being hunted. They had no future. She should hate him. But when their hands brushed reaching for the same coffee cup, when their eyes met across the room, when she fell asleep on the couch and he covered her with a blanket, in those moments, he let himself pretend. Pretend that he was someone worthy of her. Pretend that she might choose him not because she had no choice, but because she wanted to. Pretend that a monster and a saint could somehow build something from the ashes of his old life. On the 7th night, Lena broke the silence between them. "If we survive this," she said, not looking at him, "what happens then?" Minyi considered lying, offering her some fantasy of escape, of normal life, but she deserved the truth. "I don't know if there is a then. The organization doesn't forget. They don't forgive. Even if we run, they'll find us eventually. So we're just waiting to die." "No," he turned to face her. "We're waiting for an opportunity, to strike back, to negotiate, to find leverage, something." "You mean revenge?" "I mean survival for us, for Nia." He moved closer, unable to stop himself. "I won't let them hurt you, either of you. I'd burn the whole organization to the ground first." The intensity in his voice made Lena's breath catch. She should be scared. She should push him away. Instead, she found herself stepping closer. "You can't promise that." "Watch me." They were inches apart now. Lena could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, could feel the heat radiating from his body. Every rational thought in her head screamed that this was wrong, that getting involved with him was the worst possible decision. But rationality had stopped mattering the moment she'd knelt beside him in the rain. "This is crazy," she whispered. "I know. We're going to die. Probably. I should hate you. You should. Minye." He kissed her. It was desperate and hungry and wrong in all the best ways. His hands cupped her face like she was something precious, while his mouth claimed hers with the confidence of a man who took what he wanted. Lena melted into him, her fingers tangling in his hair, 7 days of tension and fear and desperate attraction finally finding an outlet. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Lena knew she'd crossed a line she could never uncross. "We can't," she said, even as her hands stayed on his chest. "I know. Nia's in the next room. I know. This doesn't change anything. It doesn't make us." "I know." He rested his forehead against hers. "But for tonight, can we pretend?" So they did. They pretended that they were normal people with normal lives, that he wasn't a killer and she wasn't his target, that the world outside wasn't hunting them, that they had all the time in the world to explore whatever this dangerous thing between them was becoming. They pretended, and for a few hours it was almost enough. The illusion shattered 11 days after they'd gone into hiding. Lena had been searching for a phone charger in Minyi's jacket when she found it. A photograph, creased and worn, clearly carried for some time. It showed her. A surveillance photo taken outside the convenience store, her face circled in red. On the back, written in Korean, was a date and time. Instructions. Her hands shook as she stared at it. She'd known, intellectually, that he'd been sent to kill her. He'd told her as much. But seeing the proof, seeing her face marked for death, seeing evidence that he'd been watching her, planning her murder, made it horrifyingly real. "Lena." She spun around. Minyi stood in the doorway, his expression immediately shifting to concern when he saw what she was holding. "I can explain." "Explain," her voice was shrill. "Explain what, that you stalked me, that you planned this." "It wasn't like that." "No," she waved the photo at him. "Then what was it like? Tell me, Minyi. How exactly were you planning to kill me?" He flinched at the venom in her voice. "It was supposed to be quick. A robbery gone wrong. You wouldn't have known." "Oh, well, that makes it so much better." Hysteria bubbled up in her throat. I should thank you for planning to murder me painlessly. Stop. He moved toward her, but she backed away, holding up a hand. Don't come near me. Lena, please. I let you near my daughter. The words came out as a whisper. I trusted you. She couldn't say the rest. Couldn't admit that she'd started to feel something for him, that she'd let herself believe he could be more than what he was. Min Yi's expression was anguished. Everything changed that night in the alley, when you helped me, when I saw who you really were. So what? I'm supposed to be grateful you changed your mind about murdering me. Give you credit for developing a conscience at the last second. No, you're supposed to understand that I'm trying to make this right. You can't make this right, Lena's voice cracked. You put a target on my back, maybe not intentionally, but because of you, because you didn't kill me when you were supposed to. Now Nia and I are running for our lives. The truth of it hung between them. Yes, the organization had ordered her death. But if Min Yi had simply refused the job, told them he couldn't do it, maybe she would have lived. Maybe someone else would have bungled it, or she would have disappeared on her own, or any number of other possibilities. Instead, his actions, his choice to save her after accepting the assignment, had painted them both as targets. You're right, Min Yi said quietly. This is my fault, all of it, and I will spend every day I have left trying to fix it. I don't want your guilt, Lena shouted. I want my life back. I want Nia to go to school and play with friends and not wake up screaming about bad men with guns. Her voice broke completely. I want to not be in love with the man who was sent to kill me. The confession hung in the air. Min Yi stared at her, something vulnerable and raw flashing across his face. Lena. No, she shook her head violently. No, I didn't mean that. I'm not. It's just Stockholm Syndrome or something. I'm confused and scared and... He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. She fought him for exactly 2 seconds before collapsing against his chest, sobs tearing out of her. I hate you, she gasped between tears. I hate you so much. I know. You've ruined everything. I know. I wish I'd never helped you. I know, I wish you hadn't too. He held her tighter. I wish you'd walked past me that night. I wish you'd called the police. I wish I'd never been given your name or your photo. I wish, his voice roughened. I wish I deserved you. Lena pulled back to look at him, her eyes red and swollen. You don't. I know. But I'm still here. God help me, I'm still choosing to trust you. Why? She laughed bitterly. Because I don't have a choice. Because you're all that stands between my daughter and death. Or because I'm an idiot who thinks she can save you. She touched his face, her fingers gentle despite her harsh words. Maybe all 3. Min Yi caught her hand, pressing a kiss to her palm. I don't need saving, but Nia does, you do. And I will die before I let anything happen to either of you. That's not guilt, that's not obligation. He held her gaze. That's love. Don't, Lena's voice broke. Don't say that. Why not? It's true. I love you. I love your strength, your kindness, the way you sing to Nia, the way you look at me like I might be worth something. I love everything about you, and it's destroying me because I know you deserve so much better. You're right, I do deserve better. She leaned her forehead against his. I deserve a nice, normal man with a nice, normal job who's never killed anyone. I deserve a white picket fence and PTA meetings and weekend barbecues. Yes, but I don't want that. The admission felt like jumping off a cliff. I want you, the real you, broken and dangerous and deadly. She kissed him hard. I want this, even though it's going to destroy me. They made love that night with a desperate urgency, as if they could somehow outrun the truth through physical connection. Lena let herself drown in the sensation of his hands on her skin, his mouth tracing patterns of fire down her body, the way he whispered her name like a prayer. Afterward, lying tangled in sheets with his heartbeat steady beneath her ear, she let herself imagine. A different world, one where they'd met in a coffee shop or at a friend's party, one where the worst thing he'd ever done was forget to call her back, one where they had a chance. But imagination was cheap, and morning always came. What's our endgame? She asked into the darkness. Really, No fantasy, no false hope. What's the best we can hope for? Minyi was quiet for a long moment. I've been thinking about that. The organization wants us dead because we're loose ends, liabilities. But what if we became something else? Like what? Leverage, insurance, something valuable enough that killing us would cost more than leaving us alive. Lena lifted her head to look at him. You mean blackmail? I mean survival. I know where bodies are buried, literally and figuratively. I know about deals, about corruption, about politicians and businessmen on the payroll. I've been collecting insurance for years, just in case. We use it. They'll kill us the moment they get the chance. Maybe we make ourselves too dangerous to touch. Deadman switches, information released if anything happens to us, that kind of thing. He stroked her hair. It's not freedom. It's more like mutually assured destruction. But it's a life, a chance. For Nia. For all of us. Lena closed her eyes. It wasn't the fairy tale ending little girls dreamed about. But she'd stopped believing in fairy tales the moment Nia's father had walked out, leaving her alone in a foreign country with a baby and no safety net. Maybe this, a dangerous man promising dangerous protection in a dangerous world, was the only kind of love she was meant to have. Okay, she whispered. Tell me what we need to do. The meeting was set for midnight at the Hanamdong construction site, neutral territory where neither the Kang family nor their rivals held absolute power. Minyi had spent 2 days arranging it, calling in every favor, making it clear that he had information the organization couldn't afford to ignore. They'd agreed to talk. That alone was something. I'm going with you, Lena said for the 10th time. Absolutely not. You stay here with Nia, and if I'm not back by dawn. Stop, just stop. Lena grabbed his jacket. We're past that. If you're walking into a trap, I'm not sitting here waiting to find out. We do this together. And Nia. They both looked at the little girl sleeping peacefully on the couch. Leaving her alone wasn't an option, but bringing her to a meeting with crime bosses was unconscionable. I'll take her to Mrs. Kim, Lena decided. The one who was watching her before. She doesn't know what's happening and she owes me nothing, but she's a good person. She'll keep Nia safe for one night. It was a risk. Everything was a risk now. They drove through Seoul in silence, Nia drowsy in the backseat. Mrs. Kim answered the door in her bathrobe, her eyes widening at the sight of them. Please, Lena said in her broken Korean, pressing an envelope of cash into the older woman's hands. Just tonight. Keep her safe, please. Mrs. Kim looked at Lena's desperate face, at Minyi's dangerous presence behind her, at Nia's innocent confusion. For a long moment, Lena thought she would refuse. Then the old woman nodded and gathered Nia into her arms. Thank you, Lena whispered. She kissed her daughter's forehead. I'll be back soon, baby. Be good for Mrs. Kim. Mommy, I'm scared. I know, sweetheart, but you're so brave, remember, my brave girl. Walking away from her daughter felt like tearing out her own heart. But this was the only way to end it, to face the organization and force a resolution, one way or another. The construction site was a skeleton of steel and concrete, surrounded by chain-link fences covered in corporate logos. Minyi and Lena arrived to find it already occupied. Black cars in a semicircle. Their headlights creating a makeshift arena of light. Minyi's hand found Lena's. Last chance to stay in the car. Not happening. They walked forward together. The organization's leadership had sent a delegation of 5. Lena recognized none of them except Yi Sung, the friend who'd warned Minyi. His face was carefully neutral as they approached. At the center stood an older man in an expensive suit, his silver hair immaculate. This was Chairman Kang himself, the head of the family, a man whose business card read construction magnate, but whose real empire was built on blood and fear. Minyi, the chairman's voice was cultured, refined. You've caused quite a bit of trouble. I've prevented more. By disobeying a direct order, by compromising our security, by making a mockery of our authority. The chairman's gaze slid to Lena. And this is the woman, the loose end that's cost us so much. Lena felt naked under his scrutiny, but she kept her chin high. She wouldn't cower. "She's worth more alive," Minyi said, "and I can prove it." "Interesting. Please enlighten us." Minyi pulled out his phone and held it up. "This device contains copies of every sensitive transaction I've witnessed or participated in over the past 8 years. Names, dates, bank accounts, photographs. Evidence that would put 20 people in prison, including half of Seoul's city council." The chairman's expression didn't change. "That sounds like blackmail." "It's insurance. This information is already distributed to multiple secure locations with dead men switches. If anything happens to either of us, if we disappear, if we die under suspicious circumstances, if we even stop checking in for more than 48 hours, everything goes public. To the police, to the media, to your rivals. You destroy yourself along with us." "I have nothing to lose." Minyi's voice was steady. "You do. Your legitimate businesses, your political connections, your carefully constructed empire. All of it comes crashing down. So what do you want?" "Let us go. Give us new identities, enough money to start over somewhere far from Seoul. Forget we exist. In return, your secrets stay secret." The chairman was quiet for a long moment. Then he smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression Lena had ever seen. "You think you're the first person to try this, to think they can threaten the organization and walk away. We've been doing this for 3 generations, Minyi. We didn't survive this long by being intimidated by children with cameras." He nodded. The men behind him drew weapons. "Wait," Lena's voice rang out. "You're making a mistake." "Am I?" The chairman's attention focused on her like a laser. "Tell me, Ms. Carter, why should I care what a foreign woman who saw nothing thinks about my choices?" "Because I have insurance, too." Lena's heart pounded, but she forced confidence into her voice. "Before we came here, I made a video, detailed everything I know about this situation. If I don't disable it within the next hour, it goes to every news outlet in Korea and the United States. A Black American woman and her daughter, hunted by Korean organized crime. That's an international incident. Embassies get involved. Pressure comes from governments you can't intimidate. Suddenly, this isn't just about keeping your secrets. It's about surviving the spotlight." It was a bluff, a complete, total bluff. But Lena had learned from watching Minyi, Project Confidence, and people believed what you told them. The chairman studied her. "You're lying." "Am I?" Lena held his gaze. "Are you willing to bet your empire on it?" The standoff stretched out. Guns pointed at them, death a heartbeat away. Lena felt Minyi's hand tighten on hers, felt him shifting his weight, preparing to throw her to the ground and shield her body with his if the shooting started. Then Yisung stepped forward. "Chairman, perhaps we should consider." Silence, but the chairman's expression had shifted, calculation replacing certainty. He looked at Minyi. "You would really do it, burn everything down." To protect her, without hesitation. "And you," he turned to Lena. "You'd destroy your own life for this man, a killer who was sent to murder you." Lena thought about her answer. About Nia, about the life they'd had before, about every rational reason to say no. But then she looked at Minyi, this dangerous, broken man who'd chosen her over his entire world, and knew there was only one truth. "Yes," she said simply, "I would." The chairman laughed, a genuine sound of surprise. "Remarkable. Either you're both completely insane or this is actually love." He holstered his gun and his men followed suit. "Very well, you want out, you're out. But understand, this is the only mercy you get. You leave Korea within 48 hours, you never come back. And if I ever hear either of your names again, Deadman switches won't save you. Are we clear?" Minyi's relief was palpable. Crystal clear. "Good." The chairman turned to leave, then paused. "Minyi, you were one of my best. I'm almost sorry it came to this." "Almost." "Almost," a ghost of a smile. "Good luck, you'll need it." The cars departed, leaving Minyi and Lena alone in the circle of light. For a long moment, neither of them moved, hardly believing they were still alive. Then Lena turned to him. "We don't actually have any of those safeguards set up, do we?" "Not a single one." "And my video threat?" "Complete fabrication." They stared at each other. Then, incredibly, they both started laughing. Hysterical, relieved laughter that echoed through the empty construction site. "We just bluffed the entire Korean Mafia," Lena gasped, with absolutely nothing to back it up. "We're insane." "Completely." Minnie pulled her close, kissing her hard. "And it worked." "Don't celebrate yet. We have 48 hours to leave the country." "Then we'd better go get Nia." The airport was crowded, full of families heading on vacation, business travelers checking phones, the normal chaos of people living normal lives. Lena held Nia's hand tightly as they moved through security, her new passport, arranged by Minnie's remaining contacts, feeling foreign in her pocket. Minnie walked beside them, his own false documents identifying him as a businessman relocating to Thailand. Bangkok was to be their destination, at least initially. A place where they could disappear into the expatriate communities, where questions weren't asked, where the Korean underworld's reach was limited. "Mommy, are we going on an adventure?" Nia asked, her 6-year-old voice bright with innocent excitement. She didn't understand they were fleeing, that they would never see Seoul again, that their entire lives had been burned to ash. "Yes, baby, the biggest adventure." At the gate, they had 30 minutes before boarding. Minnie disappeared briefly, returning with coffee and a coloring book for Nia. They sat in uncomfortable airport chairs, this makeshift family held together by trauma and choices made in darkness. "I need to tell you something," Minnie said quietly, while Nia was absorbed in her coloring. "About what we're walking into." "This sounds ominous." "It's realistic. The chairman let us go, but there are others who might not honor that. Rival families who'd love to embarrass the Kangs by killing us. People I've wronged who might come looking for revenge. We'll be looking over our shoulders for years, maybe forever." "I know. And I won't be the same person I was. I can try to be better, try to leave that life behind, but the things I've done," his voice trailed off, "they don't just go away." Lena took his hand. "I'm not asking you to be someone you're not. I'm asking you to be someone who tries. That's all. Just try." "I can do that." "And the first time you lie to me, the first time you hide something to protect me, I'm gone. Nia and I disappear and you never find us." The threat was real and he knew it. Understood. "Good," she leaned against his shoulder. "So what's the plan? Bangkok for how long?" 6 months, maybe a year, long enough to ensure no one's tracking us. Then we move maybe to Vietnam, maybe Singapore. Keep moving until we're sure." He paused. "I have money, enough to keep us comfortable for a long time if we're careful. Nia can go to good schools, you can whatever you want. Study, work, just be. And you. I'll be whatever you need me to be. Protector, partner, father figure for Nia if she'll accept that." The last part made Lena's throat tight. "She already calls you Min when she thinks I'm not listening." His expression softened. Yeah, you're good with her. Better than her actual father ever was." "I'm a killer trying to play house." "No, you're a man who made bad choices trying to make better ones. That's all any of us are." The boarding call came too soon. They gathered their minimal belongings. They'd left Seoul with only what they could carry. Everything else abandoned. Old lives shed like snake skin. As they stood in line to board, Lena looked back one last time at Korea. The country that had been supposed to be her fresh start, that had instead become her nightmare and her salvation all at once. "No regrets?" Minyi asked. "So many regrets," she smiled, "but not about you." The flight to Bangkok took 4 hours. Nia fell asleep immediately, exhausted from the early morning wake-up. Minyi spent most of the flight alert, watching the other passengers, old habits dying hard. Lena dozed fitfully against his shoulder. When they landed, the heat of Thailand hit them like a physical force. They collected their bags, cleared customs, and stepped out into a city that smelled of street food and humidity and possibility. Minyi had arranged a small apartment in a neighborhood full of expatriates. It was modest but clean, and most importantly, anonymous. They could be anyone here. That first night in their new home, after Nia was asleep in the small second bedroom, Lena stood on the tiny balcony and looked out at Bangkok's skyline. Minyi joined her, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "That this is crazy. That we're building a life on a foundation of violence and lies and temporary mercy from a crime boss. We are. That it's probably going to fall apart eventually. It might. That I should be terrified. You should be." Lena turned in his arms to face him. "But I'm not. Or at least not as much as I should be. And I don't know if that means I'm finally free or if I've just lost my mind." "Maybe both." He kissed her forehead. "Maybe that's what love is. A little bit of freedom, a little bit of insanity." "Is that your philosophy? From a Korean gangster?" "Former gangster. I'm reformed now." "Reformed?" She laughed. "Right. How long before you're bored of playing normal?" "Ask me in a year." "I will." She kissed him, slow and deep, tasting possibility and danger in equal measure. "And if you've relapsed back into crime boss mode, I reserve the right to be very angry." "Noted." They stood there for a long time, two broken people holding each other in a foreign city, while behind them their daughter slept safely, dreaming of adventures. It wasn't the ending either of them had imagined. It wasn't safe, wasn't guaranteed, wasn't anything close to a fairy tale. But it was theirs. And for now, that was enough. 3 months later, Lena received a letter. No return address, delivered to a mail drop they used for exactly this kind of thing. Inside was a single photograph, the chairman shaking hands with a prosecutor. On the back, in neat handwriting, "Your insurance worked. We're even. Don't make me regret this." She showed it to Minyi that night. He studied it for a long moment, then carefully burned it over the kitchen sink. "So we're really free," Lena said. "As free as people like us can be." It wasn't a complete freedom. They still used false names, still moved cautiously through the world, still startled at unexpected sounds. The darkness that had brought them together left scars that would never fully heal. But they had each other. They had Nia, who was learning Thai and making friends at her international school, who was resilient in the way only children could be. They had small moments of joy, Sunday morning markets, movie nights, the slowly built trust between two people who'd seen each other at their worst and stayed anyway. Minyi got a job as a security consultant, using his skills for something legal for the first time in years. Lena enrolled in online courses, working toward finishing the nursing degree she'd abandoned. They built a life that looked almost normal from the outside. But at night, when Nia was asleep, they would lie tangled together in the darkness, and Lena would trace the scars on Minyi's body, evidence of a life lived in violence. And he would kiss her knuckles, still slightly swollen from that desperate fight months ago, and they would acknowledge the truth they couldn't escape. They were a black single mom and a Korean mafia boss, bound together by impossible circumstances and improbable love. Their story was dark romance written in blood and desperation, and there was no guarantee of happily ever after. But they were alive, together, fighting for every day. And sometimes, in this broken world, that was all the victory anyone could ask for. Subscribe and turn on notifications for more Korean mafia boss and black woman dark romance stories set in the Seoul underworld.